So we've now completed our first layer of shading, but it occurs to me that I might not have made it perfectly clear why we set up the layers the way we did, and here's why. If I want to come in here and change the color of my goblin at this point, watch the shading. Because it's set to multiply, it will automatically shift its color to accommodate. So we're just tinting the existing color. It makes things a lot easier as far as making tweaks later on. We don't have to go back and re-add any shading. Everything's just going to follow right along with us. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave him green, but we're going to lighten him up considerably just so we can get a better idea of what shading is doing. So I'll desaturate him a little bit. Let's do this really pale green. And let's jump back in and start creating our second layer of shading. So to create our next layer of shading, what I'm going to do is grab our skin shading 1 layer, and I'm going to copy it off. And you'll notice that makes your all your shading get darker because you're multiplying twice now. Just take your existing layer. Make sure you don't have the layer mask selected. Select the actual layer itself. Hit Control-A and delete. So you're just wiping out all of the pixel data that was painted in there. I'll hit Control-D to deselect. And we'll just kind of go from the top down and add this second layer of shading. And the cool thing about what we've set up here is that I'm just going to keep on painting with 50% gray. And because I've got another multiply layer stacked on top of my existing one, you'll notice it's just darkening up a little bit more. And that's the whole point of why we're doing this. So I'll zoom in here to the head. And the side of the head I think would be pretty dark. So we'll just follow this around. Color that in. Now, I have seen how I've played with it. It'll work if you want to just copy off your existing layer and then think subtractively and carve out the areas that you don't want to be so dark. My brain doesn't work that way very well. I much prefer to actually repaint it. But do whatever's right by you. And we'll just put a bit of an angle there, and start to darken this up. Get right down here to the side of the head. And we'll get right on the underside of the ridge at the ear. And let's go ahead and follow this back around the outside edge of the neck. And let it kind of sweep in a little bit. And we could probably just darken this whole area in. And let's go up underneath the chin, because that's going to get really dark. And we can probably just create a little bit of a ridge around the underside of a lot of these shapes. Okay, and let's see, is there anything else up here? We can probably darken in here at the underside of the nose just a little bit. Right along here at the outside of the nostril. Of course, I really like the idea of accentuating the eyes however we can, so. I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so the armpit we know is going to be a bit of a darkened area. And the underside of the arm. And here we can start to kind of trace out the shape of the elbow and back in toward the tricep. Notice I'm keeping these shapes really simple. This is just an accentuator, adding just one more layer of depth. All of this can probably be fairly dark. I don't know. We could probably, because it's facing such in the opposite direction of the light, could probably get away with just really darkening all of this. It'd probably look a little better. Because those knuckles really do point almost exactly the opposite direction that the light's coming from. Yeah, it's okay. I think it's working out. Alright, now let's jump back in here to the shoulder. Right, and outside of the hand, and we can darken in the underside of the knuckles a little bit. I got a little bit sloppy there. Okay, and the back side's probably going to be pretty dark. This spot underneath the belly, I imagine, is going to be pretty dark. Outside of the torso, probably right here along the underside of the belly, and we'll just create that little raised area. Follow this in over here to the pectoral, because this really starts to kind of move down toward the armpit where things are going to start to get really dark. And fill all this in. Oh. Yeah, and things get a little bit quiet, because there's not much to say, really. I'm just doing what I was doing. I darken up the inside of the belly button just a little bit. And add a little dark patch right there. Start to really create some darkened areas here at the back of this leg. Okay, and I'm going to imagine the outside of the knee to be pretty dark. And as we get to the outside of this leg, right, and are we done already? I think we might be. Yeah, I think we've got that pretty much covered. So, really quick, there's our second layer of shading. It comes in nice and fast at this point, which is great. So, I'm going to take my base color and shift it back a little closer to the slightly darker green that we had. and we can see those multiple levels of shading really starting to kind of bring out the depth of our character. So from here, the next thing I want to do, I think that's going to be enough as far as shading goes, and you could push it a little further if you wanted to. If you wanted a third layer or even a fourth, you can keep on adding those, but I think overall this is going to work out just fine for us. Now I want to add some highlights to the skin, make it a little lighter in some areas, almost like there's a suggestion of specularity, which is what we're going to start tackling in the next section.